Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, where only the strongest roots see the light. Brought to you by 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗃 got candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like and share this video. Really great interview coming up today from a gentleman, initiate, author of the book Pieces of Me. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Eddie Figz.
Hey, how's it going?
Eddie, thank you so much for being on the program, brother. It's going to be a pleasure to talk about your book and, you know, your trajectory and story through Ifa and Orisha, especially with the guardian Orisha you have, who people are such a fan of, like we were just talking about off camera.
Yeah.
But you know, most importantly, I'd love to get into you before we get into the book and all the other things. Where are you from, brother?
Originally from Brooklyn, New York. Born and raised there. Now I'm in Miami.
Nice, nice. Well, definitely two very spiritual places. Like I was just mentioning to you, my family is from over there, and you know, we used to visit and things like that. Like I had family in Williamsburg, Bushwick. My father's originally from like Bensonhurst, Coney Island. He's Sicilian. So
Okay.
you know, definitely a very Brooklyn family. Before, you know, we did the natural progression from Queens to Long Island and et cetera, and ultimately Miami. You know. But I ask you, what was it like being a young man growing up in that part of the city? What was Bushwick like?
Bushwick was. I had a lot of struggles growing up from young. So to me, it was rough, but at the same time, you make your own family unit there, and you know the people from the neighborhood that know you from young, they embrace you, and you survive. It's not like what it is now. You know, I went back to visit a couple of years ago, and it's highly gentrified. So it's definitely not what it was before.
Absolutely. I remember, you know, when we first went back after so many years, because, you know, we used to go visit my aunt in Williamsburg. And I remember when Williamsburg wasn't what it is now, you know, when Manhattan kind of bled over and a lot of the older
Yeah.
community there sold and, you know, completely just renovated the place. So it, you know, it has some perks to it, you know, some positivity to it, but you lose a lot of character as well. So, you know, it's going to have its mixed opinions. But I ask you, you know, did you see Santeria or Ifa in that area growing up? You know, the random 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃. What were some of your encounters?
So I did, but my family was more of they like to keep everything in the closet. My grandmother was very spiritual. Her sisters were as well. My grandmother had like a spiritual room set up with Catholic saints and her cup of water, and that's where she practiced her stuff spiritually. But when it came to actual Santeria, it was hush, and they were referred to Santeros as esa gente.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like if Santeros were normal human beings. They were just like esa gente, the people that you go to resolve when you got to resolve. And then once your issues are resolved, that's it. You don't think about them again. But as I progressed in life, I realized that in every turn of my life, Orisha was there. I just didn't know because I had no knowledge of Orisha, wasn't initiated. But in every important part of my life, Orisha was there.
Yeah, I say the same thing. I haven't heard that phrase in a while. Esa gente, you know. But
Hmm.
my, you know, even my grandmother would say it, you know, living highly and stuff like that. A lot of people, when they might not understand, when you come from places like a Hialeah or a Brooklyn, where it's very, you know, block oriented, community oriented. You know, these are marginal areas where, you know, everybody's around each other, everybody's hustling to make a living and, you know, have some sense of stability. You know, the brujo or the santero, they were like made people, you know what I'm saying? It was like, you know, don't talk too
Hmm.
much around them, you know, move out of the way when they walk down the street, you know, lots of respect. And if you're not from that environment or that culture, it's very difficult for people to kind of understand and assimilate it, you know? So I definitely remember that. And, you know, but at what point as you're growing and starting to recognize more things, because the same thing happened to me. I was always kind of, you know, wondering like, where is this culture? And it was in front of us the whole time, but it's not until you go through it And it's like, if you know, you know, to where you're able to say, wow, that happened there. I saw said statue there. I went through this experience. Said muerto told me this at a misa. Like, so at what point were you kind of like, I'm interested in this and I want to move forward within this spirituality?
It was really late in life, right around the time where I was going to get initiated. So throughout my life, as I said, I've known of santeros. I've seen santeros in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I've seen a bunch of yaoses. But to my family, there was people that made promises, promesas to the santos,
Sure.
and that's why they had to dress in white. It was never explained like these are initiates. These people went through a ceremony, and they're going through their rites to become an Orisha. Um, as I got older, like my mom would tell me stories of spiritual parties her mom took her to and people getting mounted and the things that they would tell them, but nothing more in detail. Now, my mom, when she was pregnant for me, she was shot
Oh
and
Lord.
she almost lost her life, and almost didn't make it here. And she would tell me stories of the person that saved her. It was a yawo, a friend of hers that was a yawo.
Oh.
um and all she told me was, oh, she was, one of those people, the Santero people, and she would dress in white that whole time. She had to dress in white in her ear, and one of the towels that she grabbed to put pressure on her womb to save her was one of her towels from her 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗃. So, and she goes to visit her in the hospital, and she tells her like, oh, don't worry about it. I did a little something with Ochung. You're gonna come out of this, you're gonna survive. Because my mom just absolutely thought she was gonna die, and she was telling the doctors to let her die, and that if I was gonna come out with any deformities, it would mentally destroy her, so she'd rather just go and let me go.
Oh.
So I heard those stories, but I still had no concept of what Arisha was. Now, by the time I'm 21 years old, I already was married. I had two kids, and I go through a divorce. And I fell into like a deep depression. I attempted suicide, and no one can pull me out of that hole. So I was living in Virginia. So my mom calls me. She was like hysterical crying, and she's like, you need to go see somebody. So a friend of ours that we knew had Chango done, and I had called him, and he said, "Oh, my mom is gonna send you to somebody in Brooklyn to get read." So I got on a bus, I get to Brooklyn, and I go get read. And from there, what I'm told in the reading just takes me aback, and I start researching, like what is Orisha, who is 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, what is Santeria, and I just fall in love with it. And I tell the man that reads me, "Can you guide me in this religion? Can you be my godfather?"
You meet your godfather. At what point does Yemaya come into your life?
So I meet him, right? And unfortunate this religion is beautiful, but unfortunately sometimes the community will get you involved in a back and forth.
There's a lot of
So
characters, yeah.
yeah, I meet him. He gives me my 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, and in the middle of a snowstorm, he gives me my 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. I'm still in Virginia, and he tells me, "You need to just forget about this person. You need to come back home." And I tell him, "I can't. I got two kids. I don't want to come back home. I want to be with my kids." Um, he does some work, and eventually end up coming back home. As I come back to New York, I'm staying with my mom, and I meet people in the religion now, and I get myself drawn into the, oh, you think you did your stuff right? I don't know, but look at your beads, and your beads should be like custom made. And so, as an alayer, right, you don't know no better. You get pulled into that, and you're like, and you've heard stories about people scamming other people. So I leave his house, and I meet a young lady who has Oshun crown, and she starts teaching me a little bit more on the religion. Um, And eventually they bring down my guardian angel with her shells of Ochum.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell me that I have to get crowned Inle.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay. The next day we go to a drumming. And the crazy thing is that this drumming, I didn't know it at the time. It was a drumming for Chango. The person that was doing this drumming is the person that eventually ends up crowning me.
Wow.
But I didn't know him. I didn't know him from a hole in the wall. Oshun comes down on one of her initiates, and she comes and she makes a beeline for us. And she tells me, Mafere funye maya. Whoever doesn't love you doesn't love Yemaya. And she turns to the young lady and she says, I never said that that head belongs to Inle.
Oh
That head
wow.
belongs to Yemaya.
Wow.
And for the lack of respect that was shown for me, I am going to break apart your Ile.
Good Lord.
Within 2 weeks, everybody left.
And this was somebody you had never seen before.
Never seen before.
That's
I
incredible.
knew of him, but he didn't know what was going on with my spiritual stuff. Like there
Wow.
was no constant communications or anything. It was like I would have gone to drumming here or there, and I'll see him,
Wow.
but never any real conversations with him.
No, those are the kind of experiences that we go through that, are just shocking to people where a third party, completely unrelated, doesn't know what could be going on whatsoever, just has this huge revelation for us, and then you actually see the events unfold afterwards, and
Yeah.
after that experience, how did things transpire?
So I talked to a friend of mine that he's like my brother to this day. And he tells me, you've met my godfather from Ifa. Why don't you go get right with him and let him tell you was what? So I go get read with Ifa, and he tells me, Ifa says that you've made it this far, and the only mandate for you is to do things properly. Ifa says that you have lost a lot in life, and you will get it all and more. But Ifa also wants you to know that you do not have to be a slave to anyone in this religion. So, what is the question you came to ask? And I tell him what transpired, and I asked him, is this just a sign for me to leave the Ile? And he asks Ifa, and Ifa says, yeah. So at this point, I'm just like, I'm over everything, right? You have the going back and forth. Then I meet her, and I was just over everything. And he tells me, take it day by day. If you want, I'm here. If you need anything, you can come get read, or if you just need someone to talk to, you can call me. And it's funny because when I first met him, I was just completely taken aback. Because to me, Santero, Bahala, or someone you go to get read with, you're gonna go into this like obscure shop and go to the back, and it's like dimly lit, and it's always an older person, right? He was in his 20s. He had Dirifa when he was 7 years old,
Wow. Nice.
and he was dressed like me. Jeans, he had sneakers, he had a white tee, and it was not like this scary interaction that people would expect. Um, so he starts guiding me, and he has a plante, and he tells me, let's bring down your guardian angel. And I tell him, but I don't have like any representation as far as like santeros as godparents. And he tells me, we'll let my grandmother stand in for you for now, and I'm gonna introduce you to some people that I think you're gonna hit it off with. His grandmother was like in her 90s.
Wow.
When I met her, she was in her 80s. I'm sorry. She passed away a couple of years ago in her 90s. And she had Yemaya crown for like 60 something years.
Wow.
So during the plante, I sit down and it's time for them to bring down my guardian angel, and she steps in, and I will never forget this day. I'm literally sitting with my back towards her, Yemaya. And the moment I walked in, his father, who's a Bawarao as well, and the grandmother was like, "This kid is gonna be a child, Yemaya." And I said, "Well, let's see what happens." I didn't know who Yemaya was, right? To me, it was I knew the names, but I didn't know much of the Orishas even at this point. I
Sure.
knew 𝗃𝗏𝗏 was an Orisha that you will get read with, and he opens and closes your doors, and people said he was a trickster. And then I came to know, Ogun and Osun because from receiving my warriors and Eshu, but I really didn't know who Yemaya was, what she represented, or who she was going to be in my life, or who she was at this point in my life. So they bring out my guardian angel, and it's Yemaya. And the signal that comes out, his grandmother looks and she tells my godfather from Ifa, don't get any ideas. This kid is not going to pass to Ifa. This kid is going to be an Oba, and don't get any illusions of him passing to Ifa, because me and him were really close. Um, and that's how we find out is Yemaya. And from there, he starts guiding me, and he introduces me to the person who ends up crowning me, my godfather Nocha. And that's when I find out that the tambor that I went to, where Oshun tells me, Maferefun Yemaya, and she tells the person that was representing me at the time, I never said that Inle goes to his head. Yemaya's the one that goes to his head. It was his tambor for Chango.
Wow.
And I meet him months later, and me and him hit it off.
No, that's an epic tale. I mean, just up until that point, especially when it's always really comforting and a little chilling at the same time when people see things in us we don't see. When you meet those elders, when if you've had the privilege, such as yourself, myself, to meet people who have been crowned 60. I mean, I met a Chango priestess in Cuba one time. She had crowned Chango for like 77 years. Like, you meet people like that. It's almost eerie how on point they are sometimes. Everything has to go through the oracle, of course, but they call things out or they mention things where it's like it's incredible. So what were some of the experiences now, you having Yemaya and whatnot, what were some of the experiences that led you to consider writing the book?
So when I get to the point that I get initiated and I receive Ita, her and Obatala talk about me writing about the religion. The Oba tells me. But at that point, I'm like, I don't want to write a book on the religion, right? Because I've seen people write like on Dilogun and on Odu, but to me, that was not something that I wanted to do. I always loved writing in general, but as far as writing a book on the religion, I didn't want to do that. And as the years passed on, it was a topic that kept coming up, specifically with Yemaya. And the year before I wrote the book, I had brought her down, just to kind of see where my life was at and where I was going, because I was at a crossroads. And she tells me it's time to finish what I've asked you to do, and it's time for you to write. And I'm like, but I don't want to write a book on the religion. I personally feel that it takes you more than the amount of years that I have crowned. I have 12 years crowned of Yemaya, to write a book on any type of topic or anything to do with, as far as like how the religion is run, or dues, or that's just me, right? So I'm like, I've always wanted to write a book on my life, because my life has been a crazy roller coaster since before I was born, right? And I came to find out how much Orisha influenced it. So I was like, I'm just gonna start writing about my life. And that day, I sat down with my laptop and I started typing. I just chapter after chapter after chapter, and within 4 months, I had the whole book completed.
Wow.
And that to me was a confirmation that this is what she wanted me to do. When she meant write about the religion, I took it as, oh, I have to write about Odu, I have to write about Patakis, I have to, but I didn't take into account that you can write about the religion in many ways. So, I have this book that I wrote, I have a second part to it coming out. Because even beyond this book, Orisha has, of course, as anyone that's initiated, has touched my life beyond any expectation that I can dream of. And then I'm in the process of writing a fiction book that integrates pieces of the religion. So to me, it was more like, I sat back and I said, I look at all these other religions, considered world religions, right? And they have these charities, and they have these authors that write about, their religion in such a positive light. And then I look at our religion and I see all the press that our religion gets is on a negative aspect. Um, on an evil aspect where people don't really take the time to learn and to understand who we are as a religion. So I was like, I'm just going to take my writing and through my writing show glimpse and pieces of the positivity that the religion can have on a person, whether it be on a fictional character or whether it be through the story of my actual life.
No, definitely, brother. And I could just imagine the healing process of it all, especially with all the people that go through some of the topics that you went through in the book, just to be able to pour that out onto a page and heal from it, that's monumental. And then when you look at what a pataki is nothing more than a life account of the person with said sign. So whatever sign you may have, it's a reflection of that, being that we're reincarnated energies that are here again, to help those, not only help ourselves, but help those who come after us, so it's monumental. And then, kind of touching on, the impression our religion gets and whatnot, the propaganda. We're entering into a time where I think now, people are starting to feel a little more comfortable with, this is what we actually represent. I even have these conversations with my daughter sometimes about the difference between killing something and the sacrifices that we do, and just helping my children understand, our culture is positive, our culture is beautiful, and it is legitimate, without giving
Actually,
too much, from the book, obviously, because we want people to invest to be able to hear all this wonderful information. What's a highlight you can give, as far as something in the book that was a focal point?
so as you read, you're going to see from the beginning where Orisha, as I said, my mom was pregnant. She had a 𝗃𝗹𝗶𝗶 who had put 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁 and got her through that point. Um, I go through a lot of abuse that's highlighted in the book. Um, and through that abuse, I once I get initiated, I see how through that abuse, why Yemaya stepped into my life. A lot of people say Yemaya steps into her children's lives because they have lived a difficult life and they have a lack of either parental love or that love that they want to feel, right? They feel alone, and she comes with her motherly energy, and she envelops her children. I think the biggest focal point for me is the fact how they were there throughout. And then when I got to a point that I started to get sick, which is when I got initiated, and I thought that, this is it. Like, I've gotten sick to the point where there's no turning around. And I step into initiation. Because let me go back a little bit. So I was getting sick from my kidneys. I was having these back to back infections that they just couldn't explain. I remember when my wife now, when we first met, I had an episode where we went to the hospital and the doctors are like, no, there has to be some type of STD. And I'm like, I don't mess around like that. They did all the testing and everything came back negative, and my wife was freaking out because she was like, we were just in the beginning stages of our relationship. And they were like, then we don't understand like where these infections are coming from. And it got to the point where it started, my kidney functions just started to give out. In fact, the day that I did ultra was the day that I was supposed to go get a surgery for a fistula in my arm.
Wow.
They already had did the mapping for me to start dialysis. And I kept that in the dark from a lot of people that are really close to me. Um, and I would get these episodes of pain, like immense pain, um, in my private areas and in my lower back. When I do 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁, the night of the river, I'm starting to get to pain, and I'm telling my yubona, like, Madrina, I don't think I'm gonna be able to go through this because when I get these pains, I have to go to the hospital. And she tells me, if it gets unbearable, then you let me know. But until then, we need to complete this process and continue. And after initiation, even the morning of the 𝗀𝗲𝗹, the pain just started to get like worse. And I kept telling her, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to go through this. And after the initiation, as we sat down and everything was settled after, the matanza and stuff, I tell her, like, I'm not in pain anymore. And from that day forward, I have never felt that pain again.
No,
And I went back to the doctors and they did the blood work and everything. And the doctor was so mad at me because he was like, you're young and you're playing with your life. We're supposed to do this process for you. You're supposed to come so we can start this. You're playing with your life. Because what they wanted to do was to start me on a light, um, like a light round of chemotherapy to see if it kind of kickstarts the kidneys back, right? Because I didn't have any history of any diabetes or anything that, but the functions coming back on the blood work was like, your functions are going lower and lower. When I go back to the doctor, which is about a week and a half after I do 𝗀𝗲𝗹, after I come out the throne, the doctor is first he's upset. And they do my blood work. I go back for the results, and when I go back, I was worried because the doctor's office is just like the doctor said he needs you to come in for your results, and I go in for the results, and he tells me, "Where did you go? Because you were not here. We were constantly trying to reach out to you. You couldn't make it for the surgery and for the procedure, and we didn't hear back from you until a week and a half later. And I see that you're dressed in white." So I tell him, he was a Hispanic doctor. I tell him, I went to Cuba to seek alternative treatment. That's the only thing I could think of.
yeah, sure.
And he tells me, can you give me the name of the clinic? Because I'm looking at your blood work and everything is normalized.
Incredible.
Where I felt that the only option for you was to start a late round of dialysis to get you back up, see if we can get your kidneys back up to regular function. And within the time frame that I last saw you to when you came to draw blood again, because they wanted me to draw blood to reschedule the appointment for the fistula. He says, I can explain it. If you can give me the name of the clinic, I have patients that I would love to refer there. But I never saw him after that again.
Yeah, right. Depending, I mean, the clinic of 𝗵𝗸𝗶𝗶, right?
Yep.
Send them to the room quick. But it's things like this, countless miracles, really. Happening right in front of us all the time, and everybody who's been through this process or interacted with people who've been through this process, everybody has a story, and I think that's the most beautiful thing about our tradition is not only the mystical and mythological aspect, but the real world results based options that it provides for people who are going through various situations such as yourself. You mentioned in the beginning, going through, suicide attempt and surviving, and then also overcoming depression. I think that's a topic that within our spirituality is really shunned when I think it really should
Hmm.
be addressed more. When we're talking about mental health and the emotions that go through us. I mean, the Orishas went through it too. I mean, the first person to ever take their life, or at least attempt to, was Shango, right? After he had gone through the shame of basically killing his family, with the explosion he caused in his palace. What I think first and foremost, we were able to see how Orisha was able to help you through that process. But what can you say in a way of advocacy for those who might be going through the same thing within our community? What advice can you give them?
For me, I found the love that I felt that I was missing with Orisha. which helped me go through the healing process. And but ultimately, it's therapy. And to this day, I still go to therapy, and I advocate that for people within the religion, because sometimes I feel like, we hear these stories of the miracles that the Orishas perform, and their ashe, and how they can turn a bad situation to a good situation, and we get caught up on that. And as a community, I hear so many people saying, "Oh, this person is depressed, or this person is going through that because um, they're in Osobo, right? They're not where they should be spiritually, or they're not doing what they should be doing spiritually." It's not always about that. We're human beings, and we need to have therapeutic outlets as well. So even now, I still go to therapy because there's a lot of trauma that just based off of working in a religion or being in a religion that doesn't give you a magic pill to cure you. And yes, it helped me through a lot, and it brought comfort to me, and Yemaya brought a lot of, and all of the Orishas brought a lot of comfort to me. But ultimately, it was finding the strength to start taking the steps towards therapy.
Yeah, I
And
love that, brother.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think we need to have an equal balance between the two, because there's people with serious mental health issues that need the help, and just, "Oh, come, I'm gonna give you this Orisha, I'm gonna initiate you into this." It's not gonna help them. It's not gonna get them to where they need to be at. Like, Orisha is, to me, I tell people, Orisha is not a magic wand. You're not just gonna wave Orisha over your life and everything's gonna get fixed. If anything, I feel like I've gone through the most intensive work to fix myself and to fix my life since I've met Orisha
Yeah, that
than
yeah.
before.
No, I agree with you totally. And it's a different culture ancestrally, because you look at Cuba. It's not like here where you're going through a health situation and your doctor will just send you to another doctor, and they won't even, delve into any possible spiritual or holistic treatment. In Cuba, it's completely different, because a lot of the 𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗍s are doctors themselves, and everybody's crowned, and it's really integrated into the culture. So you'll see where, if you're going through a certain health situation and they have no tangible way of addressing it, allopathically, they'll be like, "Hey, go visit my godfather." There's not that stigma like here, or possibly the ramifications legally. And people really do get results. I mean, me as a 𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗍, I'm a big advocate for looking at the Odu, looking at the situation, and there's been plenty of times where I'd say, "Hey, you have these recommendations spiritually, but this is not going to replace said treatment." And Orumila identified this thousands of years ago, and the Odu of 𝗃𝗁𝗃 or 𝗃𝗁𝗃 was actually where someone came to Orumila with a said emotional mental situation, and when Orumila consulted him, Ifa actually recommended the person visit an onishegun, or a doctor. And the person became very frustrated, accused Orumila of trying to, take advantage of him or whatnot. But the person ultimately made the visit, and saw great results from it. And he thanked Ifa and Orumila, and that's where medicine and Ifa actually came into conjunction. Also in the Odu of 𝗃𝗍𝗃, or 𝗃𝗷𝗃, was where Orumila was a psychiatrist, and he actually helped Ogun through the traumas he had been through from war and things like that. So I couldn't concur any more with you. It's definitely something that, health has many aspects, and we need to analyze spiritual health within its own spectrum, mental health, emotional, physical. We're very complex beings, and we need all of these different outlets, like you stated, or possibly professionals, to help keep us in balance. So I couldn't agree anymore. Now, you having been through these things, and now having, obviously the privilege of children who are growing, and being an Olorisha priest of Yemoja, I mean, how has it felt to be able to expose your children to this culture positively?
So it's been awesome. So I have 5 kids.
Very nice. Very
I have
nice.
two from my previous marriage. Their mom is she lives a Christian lifestyle, and that's how she has them raised. And I don't try to push my kids into anything. I tell them the world has many religions, and everyone has a different spiritual path. And if this
Sure.
is what you like, this is what you like. If you feel like your salvation is coming by being a Baptist as your mom is, then by all means, as long as you live your life in a positive manner. Now, the ones that live here with me, I have my stepson who I raised since I was two.
Wow.
He sees the Orishas and he's like, okay, like, and he's a child of, he was marked to be crowned Yemaya as well.
Nice.
And then I have my second youngest, who's my son that lives here with me. He's crowned Shango.
Very nice.
He, since a very, very, very young age, has had like a pull towards Orisha. I have videos that I have posted on Facebook because I just found it hilarious. Him in a carriage and just rocking his way back and forth until he makes it to the Dinaha of Oshun and he starts rubbing her.
That's wild.
And I'm fighting with him. I'm telling him that's my mama. He tells me no, that's my mama. So he's always had like this pull towards Orisha. Like as soon as he can walk, he would be in front of them and just shake the maraca and just have his own conversation with them. So when we brought down his guardian angel, Ifa said he had to do Osha by the time he was 5. His journey into the world was a little rough. So my wife had a
Mm.
lot of complications with him, and we did Ebo with through Ifa with Oshun. And when we did that Ebo, I told Oshun, save him for me. Make sure he comes into this world, and when he does Osha, the first cut of his hair is yours. I will not
Mm.
cut his hair until he does Osha. My son had his hair growing until he was 6 years old when
Wow.
he finally did Osha. Because when he
Beautiful.
hit 5, we couldn't do it. So we got all our resources together, and we was able to crown him at 6. So that first cut of hair, the first 2 cuts. So the first one is on top of my Oshun, and the other one is on top of his mom's Oshun. Because my wife now she has Chango crowned as well.
Beautiful.
Um, they love it. They love it. Like my older ones, of course, they don't know much about the culture, so they come, they respect it, they acknowledge, like but they don't really interact. The ones that I have here, like especially my 2 little ones, to them everything is Orisha. And my son, to me, he fascinates me because I see Orisha through a different avenue with him. So I see him that all he's known since he was born was Orisha, and then I seen him grow his own personal, genuine love for Orisha, and I've seen him just sit and just in silence in front of Chango, and he's come up with his own schedule of how he interacts with his Chango. And one day I was just like, what are you doing? Not to bother him, but I was just curious. And he told me, I'm just spending time with. He calls the Orisha's Changoere, all of them, ever since he was young. And he goes, I'm just hanging out with Changoere. And then I see he puts his head to the batea and gives it a kiss. And I never told him that. I've never told him you got to do this, you got to sit down, you got to. And he has his own understanding. Now my daughter, who has to get crowned 𝗵𝗸𝗲, she's more diva-ish, if I can say. She's like, I want to do it because she likes to do everything my son does. She goes, I want to do it, but I don't want to cut my hair. So if I have to cut my hair, I don't want to do it. But as of lately, now that she's getting older, she's been asking, like, can I get initiated? Can I do it? And I told her, of course, we know that the initiation is not that cheap. So I told her, let's take some time and we'll go saving towards it. And then, yeah, you can do it if this is what you really want. Because even my son, I wanted to make sure it was what he really wanted.
Sure.
The day of the river, he was hysterical before we even got to the river. And I asked everyone, give me a moment with him. And we were sitting at the riverbank, and I looked at him and I told him, is this what you want to do? Because he was crying. And I told him, if you don't want to do it, we'll go back home right now. I don't care what we've done up to this point. We will go home right now. And he looked at me and he told me, no, this is what I want. I just miss my sister. He was crying because he wanted my daughter.
Of course.
And I told him, let's get over this. And then within the next day or two, then you get to see her. And everything took off from there. But it's fascinating to me to see through how they interact with Orisha. being like born into all of this and always having Orisha in their life, like physically there, and knowing what Orisha is, versus like me, like with me was like those people, and I've seen glimpses and pieces. I didn't see the whole puzzle put together like they have it in front of them, and it just makes my love for Arisha grow more. Because if a kid who is kids who are so innocent and genuine and have no malice in their heart can have a draw and can find a positivity in this, there's still hope for this religion.
Absolutely, and it lets you know it's pure because they're drawn towards what they emanate. So if they're pure and that you see them so seamlessly getting close to these things, you know that there's positivity there. It makes me
Hmm.
emotional hearing what you're saying, brother, and I'm so happy you've been able to accomplish that. I remember when my daughter received Hand to Be Fine, I actually had the privilege of directing the plante and just seeing her go through the process. Her Odu revealed, all these different things. It makes you understand that this is integral to who we are, our culture, our ancestors, and Ifa applies to every aspect of life. And the whole gist of Ifa is procreation and making the next generation better than our own. So that's why when you look at an Odu, it teaches you how to be a better father, better son, better sibling, all of these different things, because Ifa provided us this wisdom to not leave us alone. So it's just the gratification, because I'm going through the same thing with my youngest, her being born into a home of a Ifa and Orisha, her being a seed of Ifa and Orisha parents. It's been very positive and very gratifying, especially with, just I'll never forget my Yubona told me this. He said, I did Ifa to my son. And I said, that's beautiful. And he said, no, what's even more beautiful is that lets you know how much I love Ifa, because for me to give
Ashe.
Ifa the most precious thing I have or have ever created or will ever be, my legacy to 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗲, lets you know what I feel for 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗲 and what he feels for us, just to be accepted, just to be recognized. So very, very powerful there, brother. Now, you mentioned your wife as a practitioner as well. How gratifying has it been to be able to have somebody who's involved in well and possibly provides that motivation for you to be that much better of a santero?
My wife, my wife is a story in and of itself. So I meet my wife and she doesn't know anything about the religion,
Wow.
right? When I meet her, I'm in like the beginning phases of the religion. I already have my warriors. Um, I have my 𝗃𝗍𝗃𝗍𝗃𝗍𝗃, and but I feel so drawn to this religion, and I tell her when I meet her, I tell her I'm gonna tell you three things about me. One, this is my religion that I practice, and you can't change that. Two, I don't want any more kids. And three, I'm never gonna get married again. Um, I'm married again, and we have two more kids.
You held
So
true
that'll
to
tell
one of
you.
them. You held true to one of them at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah.
We're lucky if we get 30% as husbands. When we get to the negotiating table, we get
And it's funny
30%.
because her only response to me was, "Okay, we'll see." And
Perfect.
so she starts seeing my journey into the religion. Um, she sees, like I was sick, what the experience did for me, but not only that, she sees like the changes in me. Um, and she starts, as I go to religious functions, like she'll go to tambor with me, and Arisha will speak with her, and she'll get read, and to her family always told her that this was devil worshipping. So she never went to go get read until she met me. She never knew what Orisha was or who Santeros were. Just that they were these evil people that just walked around Brooklyn and just went, doing bad spells to people. And the Botanica that they owned was a place for evil people to gather and buy like these supplies for evilness, right?
Ay, mi madre.
So yeah, it was to the point that when I had took her to a function, I was freaking out because one of the priests, it was like a spiritual function, and one of the spiritistas got mounted with a spirit, and I said, "This girl's gonna run out of here. Like she's just gonna flip and run out of here." And I looked towards her, and her eyes were like wide open like a deer in the headlights. And I asked her, "Do you want to go out?" And she tells me, "No, I want to see. I'm actually fascinated." So when that happened, I said, "Oh, she's gonna follow suit, or she's gonna at least respect us enough that I will never have to worry about it." And she starts her journey slowly. Now, my wife has been a diabetic since she was young,
Wow.
at a very young age, and she'll tell you she never took care of herself. Um, so when she starts her process in New York, they tell her that she has to get crowned Yemaya as well. We moved to Miami, and she meets her elder who crowns her, right? And she starts getting sick as well. Uncontrolled blood sugars, um, almost identical to me, except with the fact that I didn't have like diabetes, but her kidney functions start slowly degrading. And she meets her elder here, and they reconfirm her guardian angel, and it ends up being Chango, not Yemaya. So she goes into this mental debate: is it Yemaya or is it Chango? Is it Yemaya or is it Chango? Like, I've heard because I've told her stories of people that have gotten the wrong Orisha crown, whatever, however it may be, their guardian angel was not brought down properly, and then they have difficulties afterwards. So when she gets to the point where she gets really sick, she ends up in the hospital. And I kid you not, anybody can tell you this story. I had I was in the middle of a lawsuit with a retailer here, a local retailer, because I got injured. She ended up in the hospital, and the only thing I did was I got on my knees to Chango, and I told him, if you save her life for me, when I settle all what I have to settle, the first thing I'm gonna do before I touch any money to purchase anything is to pay for her OSHA. But
Wow.
in the meantime, I'm asking you to please save her for me. So she comes out of the hospital, and a few months later, I settle everything that I have to settle with the lawsuit. And I go with her to her elder's house with the money, and I tell, how much is the oil chop?
Word.
I'm gonna pay for this, whatever it is. Tell me. She tells me the price. I pay her, and we set up the oil shot date. She gets crowned, but even she gets crowned, even up to the day that she gets crowned, she's still hesitant. Like, is it really Chango? Like, she didn't. She was set for so long that it was gonna be in Maya, that now they're telling her Chango, and she's just like, I don't understand. So she gets crowned, and as a 𝗃𝗹𝗶𝗶, she again, remember, she's not taking care of herself. As an 𝗃𝗹𝗶𝗶, she ends up in the hospital again with a massively high blood sugar that the doctors were like, she was like slurring her speech by the time I took her to the hospital. And the doctors is like, I don't even know how she's alive or speaking right now, and she's not in a diabetic coma. She goes through that whole process as a 𝗃𝗹𝗶. We go to a nephrologist, and he's like, you like borderline kidney functions, like to be completely just stop functioning. And by the time she finished 𝗃𝗹𝗹, her kidneys were shot, so she has to start doing dialysis. Now she's not angry, but now she's rerunning in her mind. Did I really get crowned the right Orisha? Like, you were sick, you got crowned, you got saved. This is why I tell people we need to find an equal balance between medical and faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she starts questioning, like, why you came out okay and not me. So she starts the dialysis process, and in that time, my godfather does some honras, funeral rites for
Of
his
course.
dad that had passed
Mm-hmm.
the year previous, and they do a drumming for Chango. And Chango comes down, and he tells her, before I leave, I'm gonna talk to you, but not now. just before I leave, I'm gonna have them look for you. And I'm gonna talk to you. So we go through the whole drumming, and it's time for the Orisha to leave. They take him into a room, and I looked to her and I told her, "Well, I guess he didn't want to tell you anything." I was very much mistaken. As the words came out of my mouth, they started calling her by her Ocha name.
Wow.
And we go to the room. I go with her, and then Chango looks at me. He goes, "You sit down. You go with me." And then he starts telling her. He asks her, "Who am I?" And she says, "Chango." He goes, "No, who am I?" And she says, "Chango," because she's confused, right? And he tells her, "I am your father, your husband, your guardian angel, your best friend, and everything that you ever felt like you missed in life. That is me. You have doubted that I was the one that's supposed to be seated in your head. 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 has come for you many times, and the reason why 𝗃𝗃𝗃 has not taken you is because I have not allowed it. I'm going to show you one more time who I am in your life. But from today moving forward, the way you treat me, I'm going to treat you." That was on a Sunday. Tuesday, we're food shopping. And in the middle of Walmart with a cart full of groceries, she gets a call and she's hysterical crying. And I tell her, "What's wrong with you?" And she goes, "That was the hospital. They found a transplant candidate for me and they want to know if I'm willing to take the organ. The only reason they were hesitant was because her donor was in jail previously. She said they're gonna call me back in 5 minutes. What should I do?" So at this point, I'm like, "Are you serious?" Tell them, "Yeah." So they call back and she tells them, "Yeah, we had to leave all the groceries and everything because she had an hour to get to the hospital."
Wow.
We drive from Homestead to Jackson Hospital.
Yeah.
I drop her off, and on the way there, she's crying. And I'm like, "You happy?" And she goes, "No, I'm just so devastated. Django killed somebody for me." I told her, "No, he did not. He told you he was going to save your life, but it doesn't mean that he did anything to anyone for you. He was just telling you, like, I'm gonna, either highlight your name on this list that you in, or this is the perfect, timing." And not to say that the person passing away was perfect because it's still a tragedy, but he made it do for you. Like, he didn't take nobody out for you. I found it hilarious because of just the way I know how she is. And we get there and they give her a double transplant. She gets a kidney and a pancreas,
Wow.
which cures her of her diabetes
Wow.
and saves her life. And I told her it was just another avenue to have your life saved. And this is to teach you to take care of yourself as well. Because even with diabetes, you wasn't taking care of yourself. Now you're going to be forced, but to have to take care of yourself, lest you reject your kidney and your pancreas. And it's been 3 years, and she went from looking like a twig, like a skeleton. Like, I honestly thought my wife was gonna die. She's perfectly healthy now.
That's incredible, brother. I tell you, it's like I was saying earlier in the conversation. Just countless, countless, countless things. The way they time up, and the way things kind of line up for the better, and very happy for you and your family and all your progress up until this point, brother. I'd like to give you this opportunity after this amazing conversation, to say something to our viewers, a lasting message, and after that, what's next for Eddie?
Sure. I would just like to tell people that when you seek Orisha, when you come to the feet of Orisha, seek them as partners, not as a magic pill or a magic wand. Come with true heart to them, and your life will change. But be ready to put in the work. Know that this is not an overnight thing. Yes, they perform miracles. Yes, they are lifesavers, but you also need to put in your part. And if you are not coming to the feet of Arisha with a genuine heart, then you're just not ready for the process. And be truthful to yourself, because if not, you're just gonna be harming yourself more than doing any good for yourself. And I just want to wish all those that are starting their journey to come with an open heart and an open mind. Um, I wish them nothing but blessings, and for all the elders that are kind of taking the reins, because a lot of elders now are starting to step in a bigger light. Um, I just pray for their strength, because it's not easy right now for a lot of people that are coming into the religion, and a lot of elders. As far as me, I'm working on the second part of this book,
Beautiful.
which is called Peace Together. Um, it just in the second part, I speak about my wife's journey, because this one I stopped on the, once I'm initiated and I'm in the throne. And also just the transition to Miami, how I got to Miami, because I'm here because Yemaya made me come here.
Wow.
I didn't know anybody here.
Yeah.
Um, and just that whole, that's gonna be the second part. And I'm also working on a fiction novel called 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏, which is like a romantic comedy, kind of like I said, integrate pieces of the religion, like so people can get to know who we are as a people,
Yeah.
but on a mainstream platform too. Um, I'm working on that, and I have another fiction novel that I finished that right now. I'm trying to pitch to literary agents. My goal is to land a literary agent so that my work can go more mainstream, and just spread positive messages to see what we can do as a community. Because as I said, when I started my journey in writing, I see, Christian writers, Muslim writers, Jewish writers, um, not only religiously but on a mainstream platform. And I look to the left and I look to the right, and I just see like a handful of Orishas that are writing that the industry is giving an opportunity to publish. If you don't fall into the category of Muslim, Jewish, or Christian, you don't really have a big avenue to come in and publish on your end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my goal is to do that, be able to land a literary agent and get more of a mainstream focus on my writing. And not everything is going to be surrounding Santeria and stuff, just social issues in general, gentrification,
Yeah.
issues that you may find or face growing up in the hood,
Yeah.
and how life can help you navigate through that.
Well, I tell you, I'm interested in the Santero's daughter one because I told my my girls, man, you bring the wrong one, man. He's I don't know, this some powder's gonna fly. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Uh-oh.
I'm sure some of those themes might be in there, maybe. I don't know, but Eddie, nothing but love for you, brother. Very
Same here.
impactful conversation. Very happy for all of your progress. The only thing, from all of us here at Our Roots is we wish that Yemaya continues to bless your family and your home. And, we hope whatever comes from this conversation is nothing but positive to you. Thank you so much, brother.
Ashe, thank you. Thank you. I hope the same for you, and may Urumila look over you and your family and all the Orishas. And just tell the audience, support, drop by, like the page, like my page on TikTok. The bigger platform I have, the more opportunity I'll have to land a bigger publishing deal, so we can get our message out, because at the end of the day, it's our message as a community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And all of those links will be in the description for sure. If you guys want to reach out to Eddie and, see what's next with him and stay up to date. So, Phil, we got any shout outs?
Of course we do.
Oh,
All
man.
right.
Yes. The elevator music.
All right, guys. That was a fantastic interview. Very
Yes,
enlightening,
sir.
very refreshing.
Yes, sir.
Grab that book. It's on Amazon, right, Eddie?
Yep, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, anywhere you can purchase a book.
Okay.
Very nice.
All right, let's get some quick shout outs here. We got Trinity Young.
Trinity, thank you.
These are
OG.
VIP shout outs, just
Yeah.
so you know. We got Desert Woman,
Desert, thank you.
Lala Rocks,
Lala.
Lisa B.
Lisa, thank you.
Let's go some super fans here. We got Tori.
Shout out to Tori.
We got Asata Honey
Thank you, Asada.
and Kenya Hutton.
Enya.
Yeah, so
Well, guys, a couple closing thoughts before we disconnect. Botanicacandlesandmore.com is up and running for all of your needs, whether it's services or products. Happy New Year, by the way, depending on when this one gets released.
April.
In April. The audio cast is on as well. In case you can't watch us at the moment, please be sure to check us out on all those major platforms. Nice clothing that we got going on. New Year readings are still going on for all of those who want to visit 𝗀𝗲𝗍 and see what he has to say coming up. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and until next time, guys, see the light.